Hey guys, it's Mitch. How's it going? We're gonna take a look today at some early Adam Hughes. Like not the earliest Adam Hughes, but like when he really started getting good. We're taking a look at Dark Horses, Ghost #1. So just before we get into it, if you enjoy the channel, if you feel like you might want to help out a little bit, go subscribe to my Patreon. Links are in the description, gives you early access to everything I do, helps out the channel, helps to buy new comics. So this is the first Dark Horse comic we're doing. I didn't have very many Dark Horse comics when I was a kid. I knew them mostly as the publisher who did all of the movie comics. So Dark Horse started in the mid-'80s. The first thing they put out was Dark Horse Presents #1, which was an anthology book. Kind of a classic style in the mid-'80s, black and white with a color cover. Didn't ever seem to really have much of a theme as far as I could tell. But a lot of great comic properties came out of Dark Horse Presents, starting with Concrete. And eventually you get things like Next Men and Hellboy and Sin City. So that's all awesome. But in the early 90s, their main thing was putting out adaptations of movies into comic books. So they started out with Godzilla. They got stuff like RoboCop, Aliens, Predator, Terminator. They eventually got the Star Wars license. I guess they must have bought that off Marvel. In fact, I think that happened in the mid-'90s, so it was probably part of Marvel's bankruptcy, thinking about it. And that was an interesting thing for a company to do, to just kind of focus on, yeah, no, this is our thing. We do the movie thing. And yet they were a big publisher because everybody wanted to read Alien stories and Predator stories. RoboCop stories, not so much. And they eventually got to the point where they were like the #4 publisher in comics in the early 90s. And then the speculator boom happened and Image Comics came along and that kind of shook up everything. And in 1993, Dark Horse decided to put out a line of superhero comics. Well, they'd actually made the decision around 1990. But for some reason, it took 3 years to put it all together. So by the time they actually got around to putting out this line, it was a whole line. It looked a whole lot like they were trying to cash in on the speculator boom and on trying to get into like the whole Image look. But they put out their series called Comics Greatest World, which was a terrible, clunky title, which they would have eventually changed to Dark Horse Heroes, which, I mean, it's not as bad, but it's certainly not good. But the idea was you had 4 major cities, and then 4 titles around each city. So there would be all these, it's like divisions in hockey, where, you know, your heroes meet each other most often with other heroes in their division, but every once in a while they got to go on a road trip to another division, which is a neat idea, but yeah, I don't think anybody was particularly interested in Dark Horse superheroes, and most of those comics died off pretty quickly. One of the ones that stuck around, though, was Ghost. I'm sure in large part because of the art, probably in large part because she's a woman walking around with her cleavage out. And this is in the bad girl era. So that'll do it. The whole deal with Ghost, apparently, is that she's a reporter who gets... I think in the beginning, she's supposed to have been killed. And then she comes back as a ghost lady who shoots people. Kind of like it has like a shadow feel to it. And then eventually you find out that's not the case. She's got like nanites or something. And I don't know, I mean, like, that could be interesting, but I'm not going to be going over it, so we don't need to get into it. The main reason to read Ghost, I mean, at least the first few issues, is the Adam Hughes art. The first time I saw Adam Hughes would have been in a support story in an issue of Savage Dragon. He did a couple of those, I think. And his style stood out quite a bit from the Image guys. I mean, he's got a very good grasp of fundamentals very early on, and he definitely has like his own style, but like it's so different. It's not trying to be the Image type of cool where it's all, you know, over rendered and maximum intensity. It's just more about design, really. A lot of emphasis on light and shadow and some really nice line work. So, I mean, like even looking at the cover here, you can see how much design is going just into this. You've got the Ghost figure here as this, yeah, just central kind of column as this central piece and, you know, flanked by the cemetery. So we're keeping up the Ghost kind of theme. You know, very stylized kind of shadows in the robe that she's got going on here. Interesting that he chose not to go with like showcasing the cleavage on the cover. This is early in Adam Hughes' career. He might not have wanted to let people know how much he likes drawing cleavage at this point. Who's to say? But like extremely nice cover. This is going to be inked by Mark Farmer, and he does a really nice job with the line work over Adam Hughes' pencils. And the writing on this is by Eric Luke. I'm not familiar. I don't imagine I'll be familiar with like any of the Dark Horse names, so we don't really need to go over them. Oh, I recognize Digital Chameleon, though. That's thinking about the early digital... This is 1995. I imagine Digital Chameleon has had some time to kind of get their act together. I mostly recognize them from The really early Image stuff, I think they did Shadowhawk #1 and Youngblood #1, and those comics look like shit. So we're going to start things off with a big old splash page with our protagonist. This is Ghost. And again, as I said, the huge focus on design. The whole thing with the different cities, I think each city has its own aesthetic. And this particular city is Arcadia. And I think Arcadia has its own Art Deco feel to it. There's also like Steel Harbor, Golden City, and the Vortex. And I think they all had their own feels. But I mean, this works particularly well for Adam Hughes, because Adam Hughes has a huge love for Art Deco. But I mean, that's a pretty solid opening for your comic. You know, just get like Pretty Girl in there with the Art Deco elements and like heavy shadowing going on, and like very realistic looking shadowing too. I don't know how much Adam Hughes references for his artwork. I imagine it's a fair bit though. But the way he translates shadows and everything, and just like kind of picks and chooses which shadows he wants to use, it's very interesting. He's very skilled at picking out like interesting highlights. And the feathering that usually goes with an Adam Hughes drawing is also very nice. Although, I mean, you know, obviously that's helped by Mark Farmer in this case. So the deal with Ghost here is that she's investigating her missing sister. This guy here that she's driving with is familiar with her. That's one way to put it. It looks like he got her sister at one point in his car and, you know, took advantage of her. Although at this point, we don't know whether or not the sister kind of spurred him on. And it kind of turns out that she did. But at least in this case, this is, you know, he's just meant to be a creepy guy that Ghost can get some information out of and then dispose of him, basically. And again, just like great looking stuff. Everything looks great. There's a confidence that I'm a little surprised Adam Hughes is showing at this point, just because he's still pretty young. He's like 25. I guess it's not that young. But still, like, the chances he's taking in 1995, when, you know, we're in a post-Image world, the bad girl thing is kind of starting to take over, but it's not exactly in full swing yet. And the comics industry is kind of unsure about where it's even going, I think, at this time. To just be like, yeah, no, I'm going to draw weird Art Deco shit and like pinup girls in a stylized, photorealistic kind of look. And it's like, shit, man, that's a bold choice, and it kind of worked out for him. But just incredible looking shadows all over the place. You know, like on the dude here and everything, this feels very referenced. But it also doesn't feel overworked, which is kind of an important part of Adam Hughes' pencils, I think. He's able to fit everything into this. It feels like a kind of basic style where it's all shapes. He doesn't bother over-rendering, which is very nice. So the guy's getting personal, he gets threatening. And Ghost has gotten as much information out of him as she's interested in, at least. So she grabs the gear shift and does something which blows up the car. I didn't realize you could do that. They should probably put that in the manual somewhere. Very cool shot of the beginning of the explosion here. Feels a little like John Cassidy on The Authority, although this would be before The Authority came out, of course. And then all of a sudden, Ghost is, you know, a bit of a distance away from the explosion. So I guess she turned herself incorporeal and let the car proceed without her. That is one thing. I mean, Adam Hughes' storytelling is nothing really to write home about. It's not exactly like a detriment or anything. It's just, it's not even remotely his focus. He wants very interesting, stylish images. And I mean, I have no real problem with that. That's a really nice shot with, Ghost here in the foreground, breaking the panel border from a low angle. That's all great stuff. And from there, we're going to cut to images of her sister. We're going to get a little bit of backstory. I don't think I realized when I picked this up that this wasn't the first issue of Ghost, like the first appearance of Ghost. Because there are two things before this. There's the Comics Greatest World issue that Ghost is in. Comics Greatest World was like its own series that was produced weekly, which just blows my fucking mind. And then there was the Ghost Special, and a lot of the backstory in this appears to be from Ghost Special. But we learn that Ghost's parents are alcoholics, and her sister, Ghost saved her from some freak with swords for hands. It's a shame when that happens, but it's good that she was prepared. And she got all pissed off at her at some point, told her to shut up, turned around, and the sister was gone. She'd run off. And that's like a haunting visual. And Ghost has been kind of racked with guilt ever since, and she's trying to pull together her family now that she believes she's dead. There's elements in like some of the facial construction in this that feels like Kevin Maguire to me. I don't think there is much influence. I think it's more about like this kind of thing. It feels kind of like a Kevin Maguire thing. But I think it's more about pinup girls. Most of his influences seem to be like 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s pinup artists and Art Deco artists. And I mean, you can't exactly argue with the results. So Ghost is going to go to the hospital where her parents are staying. They're detoxing. So Ghost has admitted them to try to get them back on track. And she's checking in with them to find out if they have any information about her sister Margot, but they're just like delirious. They can't even really recognize her for the most part. You know, interesting choices for what kind of angles to pick to show off the parents here. And like get the big hand here, breaking the panel border, nothing else. That's a little odd. I love the thick outlines on the figures. I mean, that's a thing I associate with Adam Hughes, but so I guess he's putting that into the pencils for Mark Farmer to go over. So from there, Ghost is going to go to the cemetery, just like lovely background shots. Like really nice stuff. While she's there, she spots a guy who's talking to, I think, his dad, something like that. And I guess she can make herself invisible as well as incorporeal. And she kind of listens in before she realizes that's like a creepy thing to do. There's a very like 40s vibe to all this. So naturally, when he's done, you know, saying goodbye to his dad, he has to put on his fedora and walk away smoking a cigarette with his trench coat on. But before he goes, he says something about sifting through the ashes, which triggers something in Ghost. She's like, oh shit, I should sift through some ashes. Goes back to, I'm not sure what this is. I assume this is something like where she died in like a house fire or something. It's not particularly clear. I mean, maybe I should have just read Ghost Special to figure that one out. But unfortunately, we're just kind of going along with whatever they want to do. And luckily, the art is all just spectacular, so I don't mind doing that. While going through the wreckage of this building that she's looking through, that I assume she was in, doesn't matter, she finds this file cabinet. She's trying to find out clues about Margot, about where she might have gone, what she's like, because she doesn't seem to really know anymore. And it looks like she finds them. And oh boy, does she. Looks as though Margot has gotten into modeling, in quotes. Really nice stuff that I'm sure Adam Hughes had a lot of fun drawing. He puts a fair bit of personality into these pictures here. So yeah, can't be fun to find out that, yeah, your sister's a model, and Ghost is kind of broken up about it, as would be expected. But like, fantastic page with the central image here. And one of the interesting things about Ghost, of course, is that since she's purely in white, I mean, if you put her against a dark background, she's always going to stand out. So from there, we're going to go to a dingy little office where a gross little dude is talking on the phone about how hot this girl is, this new girl that he's got, modeling for him, and how he's got to get her into some scenes. And if you got to drug her first, then, so much the better. She won't even remember anything. Like, it gets pretty gross. So this is obviously her contact. I don't even know if he's her manager or anything like that. He might be. Into the seedy underbelly of Arcadia, which appears to be quite seedy. And yeah, Ghost hovers through the wall. Like, it's a great looking little room. Like, it's a gross looking little room. But there's a whole bunch of detail going on and really nice perspective. Feels maybe a little bit off in here. Something like it, I don't know. It feels like a little bit like the floor curves down. But I don't give a shit. So Ghost shoots the gun out of his hand and kind of has him at her mercy and basically gets everything that she wants, which is basically just the location of her sister, where she is right now. Sick page. Interesting decisions, like making the flowing robes be a panel border here, but not making it like the full figure or anything, just picking a bit of the robes. And there's that Art Deco influence again with the smoke. It's a crazy page. Like, so many of these pages you could just put on your wall, like as like art pieces. You might not want to with that one. Maybe you do. But like they're like full compositions a lot of the time. So Ghost ties the dude up naked to his chair, and she's going to go down to the docks, which is where she's been directed. Nice, 3-panel sequence kind of a 3-panel sequence with Ghost leaping down towards the warehouse here. Well, it's more like, yeah, she jumps off there, and then she's there. Is she on top here? Is that what's going on? That's a little unclear. Maybe she's going through. She's probably going through the roof. Might have been better off to do it in reverse, show it from the landing point, have her initial leap be off in the distance, and have her float closer, and then at the landing point, you can show her halfway down. That would maybe just be a guess. It's really nice looking stuff. It's just a little bit confusing here. So she gets inside the warehouse, and it's an adult film scene. I'm going to try to avoid using the P word because I think it's been flagging my videos and actually distributing them less. The famous shadow ban kind of thing. But not only is it an adult film scene, it's also populated by like aliens and monsters or something. And these are going to be the actors for the scene. So this is some element of Arcadia, of the Comics Greatest World thing, where, you know, like just you get the kind of creepy weirdos that would be in Marvel or DC or whatever, but they're just in this more film noir kind of world, which is a weird mix and not necessarily one that works, in my opinion. So the director is here, and he's saying how she doesn't want to go. The lead actress, she's kind of off in the back, and these guys kind of freak her out a little bit. So they've got this guy here who's telepathic, who can, I guess, coerce her, which is okay. But the big pink demon guy says, well, okay, but don't like go overboard, because it's better if she doesn't want to. And it's like, okay, I guess we're trying as hard as we can to make these guys just completely unsympathetic so that we can just do awful shit to them. Ghost is listening in, invisible and incorporeal, and naturally this infuriates her, so she slams down the warehouse door, which nobody knows what exactly happened, just the door closed for some reason, and starts shooting. Shoots the telepath first, because apparently that's just a good idea in a fight. I can see that. The curtains part, and it's Margot, dressed for her scene. Maybe she wasn't that unwilling. She recognizes her sister immediately. Ghost keeps shooting, is kind of tearing up the place, but it turns out that the telepath guy that she originally shot, I guess his cone head is bulletproof. So he's able to kind of freeze her, like deer in the headlights kind of style, for the big pink guy to come up and beat the living shit out of her. And this was the one that got popular, right? It's like, okay. I mean, I guess I can see it. You know, if you're reading this at the time, it's like, Jesus, this comic is crazy. Whereas the rest of the Comics Greatest World stuff, I got the impression it was just boring. So yeah, I can see this being the one that stands out. So Margot rushes to Eliza's aid. Eliza is Ghost. I haven't said her name yet. Smashes a pot over the pink guy's head, which, distracts him for a moment. Ghost is able to, I think, shoot his eyes out. That appears to be what happens. And then she grabs the pink guy and Shadowcat phases him through the floor and just kind of leaves him there. And then we end with the director, who's managed to get a revolver, and he's got Margot hostage now, as like flames start up in the warehouse. So this place is going down. He says if he sees her vanish that he's just going to pull the trigger, but apparently she has an ability that she can access that doesn't require vanishing exactly. Look at that shot, eh? That's for the cover for the collection of Ghost, it looks like. Again, that Art Deco shit all over the place. It's great looking stuff. And then you got X, drawn by Javier Saltares. That's not bad. It doesn't quite match up, but I guess it doesn't have to match up. So Ghost's other ability is to access some kind of hell dimension. And if she does that, she goes in there, that'll let her essentially teleport. Again, it's an awesome composition with the big central image here, and then just all the panels all around it. They don't need to be presented in any kind of particular order. It's more montagey. But it's wild-looking stuff, and she just kind of knocks the gun out of the director's hand. When she shows up, she's covered in all sorts of goop, which I guess is, that seems to be where she got it from, was the hell dimension. And she gets her sister out of the warehouse. Sister doesn't seem to be too appreciative, because this is the end of her modeling career. So I think they will eventually reconcile, but yeah, right now we want to keep the tension going between these two, I think is the point. And she tied up the director in the burning warehouse. Again, it feels very much kind of like The Shadow with dispensing justice. And then something happens. Like, one of those hell dimension portals or something, I think swallows him or something. I'm not for sure. It looks pretty cool. That's my guess. Something came out and swallowed him, and maybe later he'll be some kind of antagonist, or maybe this is something that's going to follow Ghost around. I don't know. Maybe this is like an after effect of using the hell dimension. Who knows? All right, so that is going to do it for Ghost number 1. So yeah, not super clear all the time what's going on in that, but it looks fantastic. And it definitely is one of those things where it's like, I kind of want to see if they keep doing crazy shit. And I mean, you were going to want more of that Adam Hughes artwork as well, but you weren't going to get very much. Adam Hughes just ended up drawing the first 3 issues of Ghost, and then I imagine he couldn't keep up with the schedule anymore. Adam Hughes has never been like a regular interior kind of, or, he's almost never been an interior guy at all. He's usually just a cover guy, because it seems to take him weeks to do a cover. The covers are worth it, but that must have been tough starting out, when he probably wasn't getting paid big name money for just, a cover or two every month. And he would kind of bop around after this, well, all around this, really. I know he worked on Gen 13 for a little bit. He did a little bit for J. Scott Campbell, really, as well as getting some work with Penthouse Comics, naturally. From what I understand, Penthouse Comics paid very well, so that might have been enough to support him for a little while. And then eventually started to become the regular cover artist on things like Wonder Woman, and then like later on Catwoman. And yeah, now he's just the guy where you get him every once in a while, and he probably costs through the roof, but it's worth it because your comic sells insane amounts. Everybody wants the Adam Hughes variant. Every once in a while I go, hey, I should get something with an Adam Hughes variant cover. And then I look and I go, no, I shouldn't when I see the prices. So we might not be doing too much more Adam Hughes in the future on this channel. That's okay. Plenty of other guys to look at, even if they can't draw boobs nearly as well. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notifications so you know when the next one's coming out. Go over and subscribe on my Patreon. It gives you early access to everything I do, from the Blood Force stuff to the YouTube videos before they get uploaded to YouTube, as well as some Patreon exclusive content. You can also follow me on Instagram and DM me there for commissions, and you can join the Blood Force Discord server. But yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.